Good morning. We'll get started. First of all, thanks for being here. This month, I wanted to pick a topic that comes up a lot when I'm talking to small to medium-sized business leaders and founders. Um, it's about sales leadership. Many challenges come up around how to better manage my team, how to have more accountability, set goals, have a system in place where I can um, have a better handle and influence results and be better connected to sales. So I'm happy to have it this month. For some of you may have seen every month or so, I try to send out an email to the community, just trying to hit on different topics and giving back and giving some tips and best practices and guides. For me, I've been in sales leadership for over 23, 24 years now. The last 5 or 6 or so, really 100% concentrated in working in that small and medium-sized business, anywhere from a $2 to $3 million small company or startup up to 40, $50 million. So I've got a pretty good feel and really enjoy working with that type of company. And over time, and literally every week, we're having conversations that hopefully give me some good insights on what's happening out there, and I'm glad to give back. So if we look to the next slide, and my goal is to move through this in about a half hour or so, and to do this monthly and keep it moving quickly and have some key takeaways. But big picture, there's been a lot of things, studies done, and recently there was an assessment, and I have a tool to be able to do that, of polling around, I think, 5,500 small to medium-sized businesses. And here are some of the results that came back on the left on your screen in terms of answers that showed some sort of challenge in certain areas. And I'll say it probably a few times during this that, it's not easy to run a business, a small to medium-sized business, and wear a number of different hats. It's hard to keep track of every little piece of the business as you're trying to grow. But there's a lot of different things, when it comes to sales strategy, sales methodology, sales analysis, which we're going to kind of concentrate on today, goals, quotas, accountability, structure, and then, sales organization when it comes to staffing and hiring. So there'll be a little bit of, we'll talk about a few different things today, but part of my point was to show that if you're having some challenges in certain areas, you're not alone. It's somewhat of the nature of the beast with a small business, but certainly there's a way to build that and use some structural pieces that will help make your life easier and bring better results. So if you do have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll definitely answer those, and I'd love to have some back and forth here. And you can see that picture. Once again, I have a few clients that I work with on a regular basis, but every week I'm typically talking to a few small business owners, and I get a common theme about just wearing a lot of hats. A lot of founders or CEOs are helping with the website, HR, trying to manage the sales team and run a business. So it's a lot, and that's something that's common that I see out there. So some observations overall, and I just talked about it, but you know, when someone is the CEO or the founder, sometimes I've found that they're still kind of the top salesman in the company. Do they have the right amount of time to dedicate to sales? And a lot of times there's so much going on, some of those disciplines don't always happen, and it's just the nature of it. And again, hopefully some of this today will help with that. And I put in parentheses skill. I've talked to a number of people that say, I'm not really a salesperson. I'm not really a sales leader or a coach. So sometimes that's okay. There might be other specialties that person's had to be able to do that. So again, some of these learnings can help. But some things that I see that can get missed when you don't have enough time or structure for the sales team. Are sales meetings happening on a regular basis? Team meetings, are they stale? Have there been clear goals set? Does the team actually know what is expected of them and what they're measured against and what success looks like? Do you have time to manage people, and have a relaxed conversation and see if you can help them grow and to see what's getting in their way? Sometimes a rushed hiring process. to get somebody on board. And sometimes you don't have the time to vet enough candidates. I've seen that happen quite a bit. And then lastly, again, other consistent measures, whether it be in a CRM or different ways to have exposure and accountability for the team or salespeople to see where they stand with the numbers. So when some of those things are missed, sometimes the salespeople are winging it out there. They might have less urgency because they don't feel like they're being tracked as much as they could be. Sometimes you get some turnover because they don't feel like there's direction. They're not being developed. I'm missing quota. And all these things really help add frustration to the founder or CEO. So what I'm going to do is take you through in the time we have just some questions and hopefully a different way of thinking around some structure. And I'm going to ask some questions here and put some things on the screen that hopefully will make you think about where you're at now, and you can take your own personal inventory. So when we talk about, defining what you expect weekly, monthly, even daily from your sales team or your salesperson, inside or outside sales. Now, I say this as a disclaimer, every company is a little different. So when I do talk to people and just kind of understand their situation, every company or industry has different dynamics. So some of this is a little high level, but certainly there's some things that would be different that apply to your business. But on the left there, you can see, how many calls a day or a week are we asking that person to make, whether it be outside sales, inside sales? Is that clearly defined? What are the goals around qualified calls? So a lot of times you might be doing cold outreach or lead lists. Hopefully, X amount of calls will lead into a connection and someone who's qualified where you're going to continue that conversation. How many, what's the goal for qualified conversations or leads in a week? Typically, that's something you can get a handle on. The next thing, is there a goal depending on the product? Sometimes it's an introductory call, or it's a discovery call to learn more about that particular prospect, or a demonstration, whether it's a product or software or something. That's usually a big step in the sales process, right? You have your leads you might get from email outreach or your website. Then you make contact. Hopefully, you connect with somebody, they have some interest. And the first big step is usually this moment where you're connecting virtually or in person. You're doing a demo. You're asking questions about their business, about the particular pain point they have, or a solution you can provide. So is there a goal for how many of those happen a week? And usually there should be, right? And then there's also, how many sales are being made versus for current customers versus new customers, right? There should be, again, and depending on the business, you want to be able to measure both. If you want to grow the company, you certainly can grow current customers, but you also usually want to bring on new customers. So having that mix and being able to measure that is important and set expectations there. And again, there's all kinds of other things. Is there a margin goal with sales that you want to make sure you monitor? Number of orders, average order value. I've worked with clients that their average order value is $800, right? So it's good to know what the average is. So you can set a goal to have it increase to be 900 or 1,000 when you get an upsell opportunity, right? And that's, also if your average order value starts to dip below 500, something's wrong, right? You want to make sure you monitor those things, and it's something you want to set expectations for. So it's one thing to ask those things of your team, and I'll show you an example in a minute. It's another thing to ask the question is, sometimes I've seen a company have some of those goals, but does the salespeople or the salesperson understand the activity or expectations? Do they really clearly know these are the 5 things we're asking you to do and measure you against? Are the goals or expectations fair? You want to make those goals realistic, and get feedback from your team and base those off of historical numbers if you can. Is it being tracked? Where? Hopefully it's in some sort of CRM or mechanism where you could check how the team or the salespeople are doing versus some of those goals you put out there. And then lastly, if you don't measure them and have conversations and share a dashboard or a metric or something along those lines, it doesn't have a lot of meaning if you don't, have those conversations and review it with the team. So those are things that I think you want to ask yourself. Have you set up some expectations, and do you have a mechanism to measure them and have conversations about how they're doing with each of those goals? So let me give you a little example here. And again, it varies. But I've worked with some clients where we have real numbers. All right. So if you're an inside sales person and reaching out to lists and prospect lists, making 35, 40 phone calls a day is possible, right? So setting a goal of saying, we want to have 35 customer contacts a day. We have also a goal of having 5 qualified leads per week. Okay. That's another solid, tangible goal. Every week, we want to have 2 product demonstrations or introductory meetings or discovery meetings with a prospect. That's a really key first step in the sales process. Every month, we want to close 4 sales, right? That's a real number, right? And again, it would be dependent on your business. Average order value goal. And again, dependent, but putting a number out there. Historically, we've looked at the numbers. Our average order value is $480. So we want to set a goal of $500 as a benchmark, which is healthy for us. A margin goal could be something if you have the ability to change price and there's different negotiation or discounting that goes on. You want to have some parameters with your team that you want to maintain some margin integrity. So you want to make sure that margins stay at a certain percentage. That's another thing you can measure just to make sure you maintain health of your organization and profits. And then depending on the industry or where you're at, it could be we want to get 2 referrals per month or something along those lines that helps the business. That's an activity that you want to track and that leads to more sales. And then lastly I don't want to dive too deep, and these are things that we could do offline and set up a quick call. I've had some people ask, how do I set goals? How do I know what metrics are really important to my business? And again, I would need to dig in a little bit, but here's an example that's somewhat common that I've seen before and helped set up with people. So if you know that every 100 leads that you get, you typically get 20 introductory meetings or demonstrations. And then you also know that every 20 demos that you have a 5-to-1 close ratio, right? So every 5 demos that you do, you're going to close a sale. So in this example, we're going to get usually 4 sales if we do 20 demos. Okay, that's great. So now one of the keys in my mind is, how do we go out there and get 20 demos? And in theory, how do we get 25 demos? But the magic number is we need 20 demos a month, and that's going to put that salesperson or team in the right position to where we want to be. And that could be taken to another level when you talk about marketing, emails, doing things on the website. Because if you know that you need to send out 4,000 emails, we'll just say, to get 100 leads, to get 20 demos, that's a way of approaching, and the way I look at it a lot of time with clients, of how to formulate those milestones or those key metrics to drive the business. And that's also a way I coach people, say, all right, how do we find 20 demos? And maybe that's through leads, that's through outreach, that's through referrals. We want to find out a way to build those leads. So a lot of these things should be in your CRM. When you do set some of these metrics, you can put them in your CRM. They should be there for your salespeople to see on a daily basis. And when you have your one-on-one meetings, you can review those things together and really see where you're at. So hopefully that gives you a little example of some things that should be set that are tangible. So, all right. The next piece is, what does winning look like? Is it clear to the sales team and your organization? So again, on the left, a few things to think about in that regard. Are there clear monthly and quarterly and annual goals? Again, it varies by company. Most companies have an annual goal for 2025. Same thing with salespeople. Is there a goal for a salesperson inside or outside of what their goal is for the year? Many times you can break that also into quarterly and monthly goals and quotas. Those things are important. You want to measure against those. You want to have those in the compensation plan. You want to reward people for reaching certain milestones, either monthly or quarterly. which is important. Most salespeople are used to that type of goal setting. Another big one that we literally could talk about, and I may do it on a separate call, but does your compensation plan align with your company goals? Are you incentivizing the right things? This can be somewhat tricky sometimes. I've worked with a client last year, and they were rewarding their salespeople on the number of orders in total sales that they were producing that particular month. The problem was the salespeople were just getting orders and sales 95% from current customers, and were not going after new clients. So we had to do a little bit of a recalibration of the comp plan to make sure we have the right mix between new and current customers, but also rewarding with an extra compensation bump for new customers. In this example, for the first 12 months, that particular salesperson would get a higher commission on the new customer versus a current customer. They're both important, but that was something we wanted to do. The other thing that we did is we added an accelerator in the comp plan where we went back to average order value. So this company had an average order value around 500. So we put a goal of 600. Any order that is 600 or more got an extra kicker as well. So that helped the salespeople not only go after new clients, but also upsell and get larger orders because they had more financial motivation, so to speak. So that's just one example, but comp plans do shape behavior. So I always try to take an audit of a compensation plan to see if it's calibrated the right way and it's aligned with your goals. Because salespeople are great, but they're going to maneuver in a comp plan that makes the most sense for them. And sometimes that doesn't align with the company. I had a question that came up on the last call and from a couple of clients I've talked to recently. And they asked, is it too late for me to make comp plan changes because it's already March or April? And the answer is no, you still can. I mean, fundamentally, you probably want to keep most of the elements there, but you can add new elements or accelerators to it that will help enhance what you want to do. So I've seen people add enhancements to the comp plan, and it's only going to pay if people perform, and it's good for the company. And a lot of times it does help morale if you add an accelerator onto it. So that's usually a good thing. All right, we'll keep it moving. Having a CRM, I think, again, there's a lot of different CRMs out there that are really affordable. I think, most times you want to have one that can track these things. Do you review, the performance with your team on a weekly basis? That's important. I'll talk about that in a minute. Team meetings. I have a client I currently work with that every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they have 2 salespeople. We have a quick sync. It's at 4:30 at the end of the day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It can be 15, 20 minutes. One of them is fairly new, so it's important to do. How was your day? Give me a win. Any challenges out there? What does tomorrow look like? Just quick touch base, see how things are going, keep a beat on things. So that can be something that it can be important if you have the time to do. I talk about this a lot. Celebrating wins is important. I know maybe some people do it well, other times people forget. If you've got a communication channel like Slack or you have a text group, you want people to ring the bell when they get a sale or something good happens. You want to reward people. You want to ring the bell, have them put it in here. I just closed such and such, where everybody, it helps morale. It creates a culture of winning and recognition. So those are things that are good. Anytime you can give kudos to people or on a weekly meeting or on the cuff or a quick text, it's really great to do. Sometimes it's good to put a reminder in your Outlook to go ahead and recognize somebody weekly. It just helps. Yeah, I think it's just a good, healthy thing to do. Keeping things moving on the right there. I just think one of the things I think that's a challenge that I see a lot in small businesses or people that are wearing a lot of hats with founders, they don't have a lot of set one-on-one meetings. Of course, you're talking to salespeople on the fly. If salespeople call you at 4:30 asking about a deal or something that's going on, and you say quickly, how are things going? That's fine. That's not really a good one-on-one meeting. So I'm talking about a meeting that's scheduled every week or every other week, repeating on the same day and time, where you're taking a breath, you're checking a pulse on the business, how are key activities doing, you're checking how many calls you're making per week, how many demos, anything getting in your way. how does sales look for this particular month versus your goal? Um, Anything that's happening with competition, any needs you have, do you need any more sales collateral? Anything with marketing I can help you with? It's also a place to connect as well with people. Um, so I think those things are important. I see that being missed a lot, and that's where salespeople can kind of go astray a little bit. And then lastly, I say this and it can be difficult, but coaching still matters. A lot of salespeople want to be coached. They want to be developed. They want to be in a team that, has their best interests in mind so they can get better. And a lot of times that does get missed, and I know it's hard, but that does help retention. So anytime you could help coach people and, tell me about how you approach the sale. Let's walk through this together. I know role playing sounds cheesy, but sometimes it still helps. I do it with salespeople. So those things still are something to think about. And I know there's a lot I'm giving you here. I have clients I've worked with before where we do a monthly workshop, where once a month, and that's something that I've done and we could talk about as well. But where we pick a different topic every month, just for an hour, a sales development, handling objections, how to have a great introductory meeting, how to manage your time, all those different things. And we just take a topic and talk about it and try to enrich people. So, lastly, I like to have a lot of salespeople on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, have a reminder in their schedule. Hey, send me over your quick wins for the week. Something just really cool to check in and keep organized. So, almost at the end. So another piece that really plays a major role in accountability and putting people in the best position to succeed is just, and this is a topic that we'll cover another time because there's a lot here. It's just having the right structure in place, the foundation, right? Is there a clear value proposition with your company? Has it been updated? And I know it sounds basic, but most companies should audit, their story. Having these things in place will help the sales team articulate a message and speak to people when they have a clear message about the company. What we deliver as a company, what problem do we solve? Why choose us over the competition? Is that value proposition updated? Is it, are there any changes in the dynamic of the industry or anything that should be clean? Is it clear to the sales team? Do we have collateral? Is it in the website? So those are things that I'd want to audit, or you should audit as well. Understanding number two, who your best customers are, the ICP. Do you know who your ideal customer is? And then let's go out and find more of them, whether you know who they are in the community. There's different platforms that I use as well. If you want to work in the apparel industry or work with machinists, there's a way to go in there and find out who are the biggest organizations in your area, add those into your CRM, and that's a hit list for you to go after and engage. That's a really important thing to have that ICP developed. We talked about a CRM. It's important, I think, to some level to have that repeatable sales process. I think it's important when you onboard new reps that they have a repeatable sales process, whether it be email templates. The first one is an email, then it's a phone call. You might ping that person on social media, have a second follow-up email. You might have a different sequence, and so forth. So those things are important to have there. I get a question a lot when it comes to sales process. Somebody asked the question, my emails aren't really getting much response. So this is a separate topic as well, but having a sequence of emails set up is important. Having them short, to the point, having a call to action in them is important, whether it be a link or a contact us or a quick assessment. Tell us about your business, and that pings the sales inbox. So that's another topic that we can cover, but I just wanted to mention I get that question a lot. And then lastly, do you have updated sales tools, presentation, sales collateral, email templates? I'm really big on having a 1-minute video about your offering, about what you do, so people can digest that really quickly. So those are just some things right there. Again, each one of those pieces will probably be the topic of future monthly meetings. So really, wrapping up here, hopefully this wasn't too much information and it helps you think a little bit about setting some foundations in place, getting in a position to have better accountability. Hopefully you've taken a little pulse of your own business and find out where you may do some of these things, where there might be some things that are missed or gaps. But things we talked about are setting clear goals, making them, tangible, real numbers, showing that pathway to winning. I always say I love to have salespeople make more money, and I want you to have bigger commissions. That means we're all winning. Things are happening, so that's a good thing. Reviewing compensation plan. It's not too late to make some additions or some accelerators in there. Having good team meetings, all those things I think are important for you to think about. I also think, to do some self-reflection about the time that you have and can dedicate to wearing the sales hat. And I say holding growth back, and I say this respectfully, but I've also had conversations where some founders are like, I think I'm the one holding the sales team back because everything's funneled through me and I have other things to do. So ask help if you need it. I'm a fractional and outsourced sales leader. Those are things that I do where companies, might not need a full-time sales leader. And I come in and I work with only about 2 or 3 to 4 clients at most at a time, for anywhere from 4 months to 15 months, helping them build that structure, help them manage their sales team in many cases, and take that weight off of the founder. So you'll know best what works for you. But in some point, if you do want to take that next leap, in one of the comments that I hear a lot, and I had somebody bring this up January, was we're stuck at $19 million. I just can't get the revenue to take the next step. And many times it's very difficult to take that next leap in growth if you don't change and add structure and possibly add elements to your team that can that can spring you to growth. Otherwise, you sometimes plateau, but you need to have these structures in place to do that. So, and that's it. I put that here. Don't wing it. The definition of an insanity. But anyways, I hope this was insightful. I hope you took a few things away. My information's there at the bottom. I'm going to send this out. I'm always open. I set aside usually 1 or 2 appointments a week just to talk to folks that might need some help, to have a quick conversation about some challenges they have. So if you want to get in touch and talk about your unique challenges and have me give you some insights, I'm happy to help. I have guides and so forth. I'm going to send you a checklist as well that you can take an assessment of your business. And that's really it. I really appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon. Thank you. See you next month.